after that period, you began to kind of get back into your routines again, I'm guessing? You began to start to do normal things around the house and take on new activities. But one thing you haven't mentioned, or should bring it in now, is that you were working previously, of course.
Yes. Yes.
How did that fit in with this period?
Well, there were two main things. So I was travelling with my work, finding it difficult to eat food. But the other thing that was worrying as well, I'd never ever felt as tired in my life as I did then. The tiredness was taking over. I'd always been fairly active, a lot of nervous energy, could hardly sit down, sit still. But I was finding it was affecting me quite strongly.
There was a problem with fatigue?
Yes.
Any other major complications?
Yes, I'd go to bed at night sometimes, and I'd lie there, and sometimes I would get quite a heavy pain across my chest. And I'd never had that before. Quite an acute pain. So that worried me as well.
Let's go back to the fatigue. Now, fatigue is a troubling symptom, and if you ask patients with miscellaneous cancers what their most troubling physical symptom is, it's often fatigue that's most commonly cited as a frequent problem. And fatigue can be related to lots of different things, though, of course. It can be the surgery, the chemo or radiotherapy. It can be deconditioning, which is inactivity by virtue of being unwell. It can be a direct effect of the cancer itself. Sometimes it's not clear where the fatigue's coming from. But in your case, how would you describe it? What was it like?
It was, irrespective of how much work I'd done or how heavy a workload I'd had at work, I was doing things that I'd never done before. I was coming home at night, and instead of going on my garden or going out, I was tired, and I would sometimes fall asleep. And it was a heavy tiredness as well. You know, it wasn't just a yawn. I felt really drowsy, and that was the difference. Yes.
How long did that go on for like that?
Well, it's difficult to say because I acted fairly quickly. Once I got the symptoms that I knew had got some sort of major problem, I reacted quite quickly to it and went to see my doctor. But I would think about a month or so, something like that.
So you actually sought help out, which is unusual. Not everybody does that.
Yes.
And what, did you receive advice that was useful for you?
From a GP?
Oh, yeah, or from any source?
Not really. We really took it upon ourselves to do this because it was so unlike me to be in that sort of condition.
Yes.
I'd never had a reaction like it before.
No. What do you, in retrospect, think it was down to?
I think that part of it might not be related, but the job that I did was very stressful. I know that the condition I had, a lot of it is down to smoking, diet, but we've always thought that, you know, I haven't smoked since 1972, and we've always eaten very good diet, looked after ourselves very well, but I did have a very stressful job. Now, whether that impacted on it, I don't know. I very often think about that, you know, in retrospect, and whether it had got something to do with the sort of job that I was doing, because it was highly stressed.
Let's talk about the work side in a second, but just to finish off regarding the fatigue. So you'd had this trouble in fatigue, and it was going on at least for a few weeks, maybe even longer than that. And did you find anything by your own resources, you know, the little things that may have helped it, or even harmed it, i.e. made it worse? What did you feel was influencing the fatigue?
Well, I think the main things that were influencing it was I used to get up fairly early in the morning because I worked in Coventry, live in Leicester. So it was 6 o'clock in the morning when I was getting up to get to work for 6:45, 7 o'clock. I found that increasingly more difficult to do. Once I got to work and I was involved in my work, it wasn't too bad, but I was getting more and more tired through the day. So I think the sort of work ethic had quite a lot to do with it.
What about activities? If you did more activities, did you feel more drained or not particularly? If you rested, did you feel recuperated?
Well, not really. I didn't really feel as if rest was doing me any good at all.
No.
And that's what made me think that it was a little bit out of my control.
Yes, and actually I think that's a good example of where fatigue becomes more of a clinical problem, where there's a dissociation between the activity level and the fatigue itself, such that by resting you can't really recuperate. It becomes a real problem then.
Yes.
Because you don't know what to do you? You don't know how to combat it.
No, that's right. And that's what made me think that there was something quite seriously wrong with me. Yes.
Now, did you try the what's pretty much advocated these days, which is what they would call a graded activity approach? What that means is setting yourself a target, for example, a physical target, and doing that one day, and then building up a little bit more the next day and the next day, or week on week. It doesn't necessarily have to be every single day. But the point about it is to build up gradually and try to give yourself almost like a rehabilitation approach.
Is this post-operation? Or?
Yes.
Yes. Well, as I say, we've both been fairly active all the way through our married lives. And yes, post-operation, I realised that I wasn't going to be able to go back automatically to the levels of activity that I had before. So yes, it was a gradual process. We used to take walks, short walks. We've always done a lot of walking, short walks, and then increasing the distance a little bit every day.
Exactly.
And I was into bowls as a sport as well.
Yes.
Pre-operation. I carried on and picked that up again afterwards.
Good.
Not straight away, but yes, gradually got myself back into a routine.
And I'm just wondering, was there a point then when the fatigue then, from your point of view, diminished, or it seemed to go into the background as a problem?
Yes, I think it did, and I think it was two things caused that. It was the gradual build-up of physical activity again, and getting used to and putting into place the diet and the spacing of food and meals, which built me up again as well.
Yes.
Yes.